G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video. This is another FIA Nations Cup combination. One of two videos this time around. I did 3 races here. That was a bit too much for one video. I do like to sort of, keep my videos around the 25 to 30 minute mark, because I feel like after that you're kind of asking a bit too much for people to remain interested. So it was a bit too much. This is 22 minutes and it's only 2 of the races. We see the combination now. It is Monza, or Autodromo Nazionale Monza, said with the lovely Italian inflection there. It is actually just a one-make race. Interestingly, it is the Group 4 Lamborghini Huracan. See, this is the qualifying session. Everyone's in the Huracan, of course, one make, which means this is the only car available. We are, of course, using livery, so it's a one make, not a specially provided race. But you see, we spent the first bit of the qualifying session trying to find some slipstream. See, Monza, cathedral of speed. You do want some slipstream down the straights, ideally, when everything goes to plan. But we eventually found ourselves a bit of a group to slipstream down the straights. You don't want to slipstream one guy on their own, because you'll catch up to them and they'll become an issue in the corners, of which there are 11 on this track, in the form of 3 chicanes and then 4 right-handers. But we'll come to the qualifying session through the first chicane nicely, and then we're going to come up through Curva Grande, if I can get my thoughts straight there. Everyone's a little bit wide coming through there, and I was kind of torn between taking that inside-most line or going into the slipstream, so I took a bit of a middle road. Into the second chicane now, braking after the 150 metre board using second gear. It's a bit more open than the first chicane. And then coming on the exit here, you see we get through there nicely, but the pair ahead don't. They get half a second penalty each. And then this guy here, Mr. Manpack, decides the apex of Lesmo 1 is is the correct place to come away from your lap. It is absolutely not the correct place to come off your lap, because you see I was completely and utterly blocked and understeered off the track, and I decided to kind of wipe him out a bit. Of course, this qualifying does not have, in terms of wiping each other out, it doesn't affect the race really, unless you're on a lap. Of course, I was blocked. My lap was ruined. His lap was already ruined. So, I did go for the bit of a punt. But, of course, we are going to be in 20th out of 20. But, as always, for now, let's enjoy the intro. As always, how good is that intro? And that's about the best thing about today's video, as well, as you can probably tell by the thumbnail and the title that this did not go to plan. I mean, you can already see how things are starting to go. This was the first race I did, so this has kind of set the tone for the race, later. Really. And you see, one eternity later, we get down to the rear of the grid, where I am there. R4M Smokescreen putting in a nice disappointing result, thanks to people deciding that apexes of corners are great places to come off your lap. But let's not focus on that. Let's try and get through the pack here. We'll talk about strategy now at this point here. There's actually a yellow flag into turn 1. You see how I sort of stay back a bit from the rest of the field, and there is a bit of carnage going on. There's Manpack on the left-hand side. Brainache comes across and just has a bit of side-to-side contact with him. Manpack is on my left-hand side at this point. He drops down into 20th out of 20, so I'm up a position into 19th. Probably the more correct orientation of the grid at this point, considering that a certain Mr. Someone decided to block my lap. Gets a bit awkward coming into the second chicane. Brainache goes into the back of, I didn't catch his name, ST Nickel, and then I sort of just grazed Brainache as well and sort of punted a bit forward. He does get a 1 second penalty out of it, but I'll allow him to serve the penalty. That was the only sort of real casualty. It was just a race incident, that one. Of course, I don't like to make contact, but, you know, I'm not going to own up for contact that wasn't wholly my fault. But he'll serve the penalty and drop further backwards in the field, up into 17th position at this point. Someone's off ahead, but obviously nothing occurred. We skip ahead to Ascari XDC86, gets absolutely displaced from the group ahead, going through Ascari, also gets a 2-second penalty at that point. You see he completely understeers off the track at Curva Parabolica, probably as a result of having dirt on his tyres. Coming through the second chicane of the second lap, Oz 3 gets a bit out of shape, and I go for the most minuscule gap, about half a Lamborghini Huracan width wide gap, and I go straight through there. But you see he manages to muscle his way back through Lesmo 1, completely fair game, and then goes for a move up on Godo on Lesmo 2 as well, displaces Godo to the left hand side of the track, and I managed to get that position up as well into the slipstream of Oz ____ 3 now, coming down Seraglio straight towards Ascari. Let's see what transpires down here. I just back off, actually, I don't want to run into the back of him, but someone goes for a bit of a late move on me and displaces me onto the edge of the track, and then I get a nice punt from behind, another punt from the side, and try to slow it up to avoid spinning, and then someone goes into the back of me, and I get completely spun around into the gravel trap on the exit of Ascari, thanks to somebody going for a little bit of a late move on the entry. So this is where the strategy takes an interesting turn. This is a one-stop race, ideally. Medium, I don't quite remember. The hards are definitely mandatory. I don't remember if both tyres are mandatory, but obviously it's quicker to go for the stop and have a stint on mediums than it is to, you know, go the whole race on hards. I'm pretty sure everyone comes in for a stop. Both tyres must have been mandatory. I don't quite remember though. But what I decided to do, now I was at the back of the pack, so I really had, you know, I had nothing to lose basically. So I started on the hard tyre, of course, starting at the back of the pack. I did not want to kind of spend my medium tyre run stuck in traffic, so I started at the back and thought I'll go into the hards where I won't lose time for my medium run. After being completely and utterly destroyed, I think is the correct word, coming through Ascari of the coming through Ascari of lap 2, I decided to go into the pits and go into medium tyres for 2 stints on medium, so I ended up going for a 2-stop at this point to see if I can get any dregs of having, you know, good pace for a longer amount of the race compared to my opponents. So you see, we sort of come into a little bit of traffic now. We're in 17th at this point. It took a few laps behind Oz 3 to catch up to Massimo, and he goes for a nice move, coming through Ascari and completely, well, doesn't completely, but nudges Massimo wide and allows me to follow him through as well. So up into 16th, into the slipstream as well, coming into Curva Parabolica, which can be an overtaking opportunity if your opponent runs deep. We'll see if we can get that to happen here. On the outside, my best bet is to brake slightly earlier and hope that my opponent turns in a bit early, and Oz has done so a little bit. You see we've got the cut back on the exit, and he just gets a little bit out of shape there, slams into the side of me, but it's not to worry. And thankfully we've got the slipstream Vesti Nickel now, and we're going to get that slipstream all the way down the straight, which hopefully can ward off any further moves by Oz from being into my slipstream coming into turn 1. A couple of people going for their pit stops, we make up a few more positions, and I end up slipstreaming past ST Nickel there up into 13th place at this point. Oh, and something completely just fell. Hang on. Right, that was my power brick off my wheel, falling off the wheel and plummeting to the ground. But we'll come back to the action now. You see I've run a little bit wide through Parabolica of lap 9, and Oz gets the undercut on me, pretty much a repeat move of before, so that was a sign to me my medium tyres have completely gone off. So I go in for my second of 2 stops, back onto the medium tyres. Of course, my first 2 laps are on my hard tyres, so I've satisfied that requirement, and 2 stints on medium, more than satisfied that requirement if it so existed. Coming out of the pits, we are in 16th position at this point, so it could be a lot worse. Well, not a lot, it could be a little bit worse. But around a lap later, we come around the pit straight again and meet our old friend Manpack coming out of the pit lane. He, of course, will be on fresh tyres, probably mediums, he started fairly far back in the field, so I assume his first stint was probably hard tyres. And I am on 1 lap old medium tyres, so Manpack, I think, has got a 1 lap advantage for tyres. So we're going to see how this goes. I, of course, do have slipstream, so we're going to be in his slipstream for these few laps. You see, I close up under braking, probably still got cold tyres. He runs very deep, cuts across the apex of the second part of that chicane, which is generally what you do when you run deep, because you will get a penalty if you run over the inside of the corner. He's a bit slow through Lesmo 1. I think there was a little bit of contact going through there. I just flashed my hazards in hopes that he looks back and sees that he's rather slow and moves out of my way. But, of course, going from previous actions, he probably won't. But we'll come down Seraglio straight in the slipstream towards Ascari. We have seen historically this is an overtaking opportunity, so we'll see how we go. We run to the outside, he runs defensive, which is fine. I try and outbrake him on the entry, but he gets a superior run on the inside. I have to give him room through the mid part, and then on the exit he does get me back, which is fine. We'll get into his slipstream again, coming down towards Curva Parabolica. He has got the run from the exit of the previous corner, so the slipstream is going to be difficult to catch that whole gap in before Parabolica, and it hasn't quite happened in that particular instance. We close up under braking. We're obviously much more confident on the brakes here, probably brake bias, or the fact that maybe he hasn't got a wheel and I have the wheel, so I can... Obviously, if you've got the wheel, you can slam the pedal and you can get onto the brakes much quicker. You can get up to 100% much faster than if you were on a controller. For some reason, the controller input takes time. Coming up the straight here, I pull out of the slipstream and he comes in. Have a look at that again, and he had massive rapid move under braking there, and manages to meet the apex still. But see, I pulled out of the slipstream to go for the move into the braking zone, and he completely sort of cuts across. You see he's done it again. I'm not quite sure what's going on. You see I'm 3/10 behind at this point. But we'll come through Curva Grande. He's obviously hell-bent on allowing me not to pass. See, he runs defensive into the second chicane, so I'll give him quite a bit of room, brake early, and he actually brakes really late, completely bins himself off the track, and we look behind to see barriers completely flying everywhere, so that's a nice bit of karma for him. Obviously, I'm not really quite sure what was happening. He blocked my lap. I did go for that massive pump, which I probably shouldn't have done, but it didn't affect the race, sort of past what had already happened. You know, he wasn't on a lap, he got a penalty, his lap was ruined, my lap was ruined as well. You know, I might as well have done it. But we're up into 14th at this point. I'll go for the move here. Lovely, absolutely textbook cutback move coming through Lesmo 1. That was honestly one of my most beautiful moves. And coming through the chicane of the final lap, the first chicane of the final lap, I get a track limit penalty, a 1.5 second one, which we will serve later in the lap, coming down to Seraglio straight. It's in the first half of the straight, so it completely kills your momentum, and you see the car that we got the good move on in Lesmo 1 makes its way past again. We find ourselves in 14th by the end of it, which, if you remember, we started 20th, so, you know, a good handful of positions moved up, but we're never going to be able to contend for the front. You see I had the number 3 on my car. I really should have done a lot better. You see, we go up 6 positions. I guess that's better than nothing, and that is probably thanks to me picking up the dregs of other people having incidents throughout the race. But we'll move on, as I went again. This is the qualifying session of the next race, so we'll have a look at the qualifying lap. Let's see if we can get a clean one in. You see I've got a massive gap ahead, and I do have someone in my slipstream, which isn't great, as I do run the risk of him catching up to me through the straights. But you see, in that quick look behind there, he wasn't quite taking my full slipstream, so I probably don't have to worry about that as much. But my hopes here, slipstream obviously didn't work previous time around, so I've gone for the alternate strategy, which is getting clear air and getting in a clean lap, which personally I have found to be more successful for me. Most of my successful qualifying laps have been without slipstream thus far in my previous videos, so I've gone for that here as well. And you might think, Monza, you really do want some slipstream, but I did not use it for this lap here. You see I'm still quite a large gap behind, and I come across the line with a 156.7, which is not too bad. Could be better, of course. I think my practice record was like a 55.8 or something, so but quite a margin better. And you see here on the grid, it's not quite an eternity back to my car. It is only 2,000 years in this particular instance. Not quite an eternity, but we are in 7th ultimately, about 6.5 tenths off the lead. So Monza here, it's pretty much characterised, or a race at Monza is characterised by A, surviving turn 1, and B, remaining in the slipstream, and then to a lesser extent C, don't get wiped out, which I nearly did coming into turn 1, someone forgetting which pedal does what, which is a bit concerning at this stage in this game's life. But you see the two Lamborghinis ahead are going side by side, coming through Curva Grande. Corey has the favoured inner line, get a shorter distance. Chris Copey, however, had the momentum around the outside and now has the inside for the second chicane. Just nudges Corey a little bit right to the edge of the track. I think that was fine. Bit heavy-handed, but fair, I think. Trying to just, push him to the outside a little bit and sort of get his own car further to the outside, closer to the optimal racing line for that corner. So that was fine, but you see, unfortunately, he does get a penalty, which he will serve just here. Let's see if it's going to be enough for me to get the position. Definitely enough for Corey. I grab the slipstream off Chris as he begins to get back up to speed after serving his half-second penalty, and I do go to the outside, coming into Ascari. It's going to be quite close. We're almost side by side coming through the braking zone, but I just managed to get past him there. I started on hard tyres again, and even though I started further to the front, I did still think that the hard tyre was more favourable at the start, because you lose a lot of time going through that first chicane, or first few chicanes, first lap even for the first time. But you see, it hasn't quite worked out. I have lost the slipstream of Corey at this point. I also now have a half-second penalty, which I will serve on the next lap, obviously. And Chris Copey goes for that move at Parabolica that we've seen a few times previously, so I would imagine he's probably on medium tyres given the advantage he just had through there. He runs almost off the track there. I don't quite follow him. Not quite sure of the penalty situation on that point of the track, but I did not want to risk it, so I just remained on the track. But I still get into his slipstream for as much as I can. Coming into turn 1, not quite close enough to go for that move, so we just back out of it a little bit. But I can tell you who doesn't back out. The person behind me, didn't quite catch what happened there, but somebody did forget that brakes are needed on a racetrack, especially at turn 1 at Monza, and runs into the back of us. And I managed to get through there fine without a penalty, but I'm now 3 seconds behind Corey instead of about 1.7 I was at the end of the previous lap. I've also now got Oz coming up the inside on the second chicane, a little bit of contact on the way through, but it's fine, gets the move done, but he picks himself up a half-second penalty, so we're both going to serve that, coming onto Seraglio straight for the second of 15 times in this particular race here, and this is kind of where this race also begins to go downhill. So we're going to come up to this penalty zone here, and now one thing that is quite sort of unspoken about Monza, it's really quite narrow, especially at this portion of the track, and you see High Stakes tries to go for the gap in between. As High Stakes comes in front of me, and I try to go to the inside and completely misjudge, or completely am unaware that someone was also on my inside. So I ended up completely swiping across the width of the track, slamming a car off into the wall, into the white Lamborghini, giving him a penalty, and then that completely balks me and pretty much the entirety of the field behind. That one was on me. I'm not proud of that one, really, or why would I be proud of it? I don't even need to say it. That was not very mindful racing at that point. I think, you know, that can kind of be put down to I was quite frustrated at this point. Both my first race went awfully, and then the second race was going fine, but the penalty was kind of annoying, and I knew that would kind of slow my momentum, and I wasn't really thinking about my opponents around me. But what's done is done. I've owned up to my error, and that is completely my fault. There was a little bit of awkward contact where that car tried to go in between the gap of the pair of us who had been slow as a result of the penalty, but completely and abruptly swiping across the width of the track without actually checking whether someone was going on my inside is a very rookie error and completely my fault. But we'll move on. We know this race is already going awfully, so you see we go for the replication of the strategy in the previous race where we get off those hard tyres, go for the extra stop onto the mediums and hope we can kind of outpace some people at the back of the pack, because at that point a race victory, or actually a victory, pretty, definitely impossible. Shoot me, definitely impossible. If it is possible, then I don't know, definitely not possible though. But we'll see what we can do here. We're on the outside of Mercedes C111, coming on the run down to the first chicane. Chris Copey comes out of the pits, a little bit of awkward spot there. The track is just wide enough to temporarily go 3 abreast as both of us pass. They're coming into turn 1. Mercedes goes up the inside. That's about the best kind of move you could have asked for, given the situation there. I had someone right on my tail, so I couldn't really abruptly back out or brake slightly early, as I would have gotten a nice a bump from behind. But that's about the best move you could have asked for at turn 1, given the situation. So we remain line astern, coming through Curva Grande and then into the second chicane. Mercedes goes defensive to defend his position, rightly so, but runs a little bit deep and goes for that awkward, sort of really slow middle apex there. But I don't quite make contact with him, which is good. Coming into the Lesmos now, he turns in quite early for Lesmo 1. You see he's slow on the exit. You see I do have quite a lot of overspeed, but the straight towards Lesmo 2 is not quite long enough. And you see here, goes completely levers me out of the way, that guy. It was Uwok Hunks GT. Completely just displaces me off the track, gives me no space and goes for the move that really wasn't on. So I find myself back into 20th position. This is not going well. This is not ideal whatsoever. So coming in for the second of 2 stops, which is already putting me at a disadvantage because the optimal strategy by far is a 1 stop, not a 2 stop. I'm still in 20th out of 20, but somehow I'm still trying to pick up positions here. Coming into Ascari for the 10th time, I'm still in 20th out of 20, and Mercedes goes quite deep into Ascari, cuts back on Makosi there, and it gets a little bit awkward as we see through there. And I was not giving that position back because the contact was made by my 2 competitors in front of me, and I was simply taking advantage of the fact. I don't know. Put in the description whether you think you would have given that move back, but my odds were on he was probably going to spin off anyway, so, and we were at the back of the pack, so what is the point? The way I see it, I was pretty much going to quit that race, but I did remain in it to see what would happen, and in the end it was a 16th with a 73-point result, somehow worse than my first race, even though I qualified much higher up the grid, in 7th instead of 20th. But that's the first video of this combination. As you can probably tell by the sort of tone of the video, I'm not that happy with the happenings of this particular combination here. You see it did not quite go well. Set pretty much right at the start in my first qualifying session. I was just going back to that. I'm sorry, I have to address it. Qualifying, blocking people and qualifying, that is day 1. That is like 101. First lesson of motorsport. Any mention of qualifying, make sure you do not block the laps of the opponent behind you, because it can be pivotal to their race, and you see it was. I was already leaving it to the very last possible chance I had at completing a lap, and I mean, I guess that's the risk you run really, but blocking laps is really not what you want to do. But we're going to leave it there. We'll discuss further in the next video in a few days, so keep an eye out for that one. But that's going to be it from this one today, so do hit that like button if you somehow enjoyed it. I personally have disliked this video. It was very displeasurable to film. And then do subscribe if you would like to see more videos like this in your subscription box, of course. Why would it be anywhere else? But that's going to be the end of this one today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.